Hello, friends. This is Confessions with Amy. Here we share new confessions every day.
My name is Ria Lancaster. I'm 32 years old. Tomorrow, I will walk into courtroom 4C at the United States District Court and take my seat at the bench. But first, a room full of people, including the man who once laughed when I said I wanted to be a judge, will have to rise when I enter. He doesn't know I'm presiding. He thinks I'm still in the archives, still sorting motions and scanning transcripts while someone else makes the decisions. And to be fair, that's where I was, once. 10 years ago, I worked in this very courthouse as a junior records clerk. I had no law degree, no voice, and no right to even sit at counsel's table. I spent most days pushing carts of discovery binders down echoing hallways, whispering, "Excuse me," when attorneys brushed past. One of them, Michael Trenholm, used to call me Kid. Said it with a smirk and a coffee he never carried himself. "You're sweet," he told me once, "but this world's for sharks." Tomorrow, when he stands to present opening arguments in Trenholm versus Barrett, I'll be the one wearing the robe. And he'll be the one saying, "Yes, Your Honor." Tonight, I'll sit through a dinner I didn't plan, hosted in honor of my sister, a defense attorney at Trenholm's firm. My mother will beam with pride. My uncle will make a toast. Someone will ask if I'm still doing court paperwork. I won't correct them. Not yet. Let them have tonight. Let them make their jokes. Let them imagine I'm still beneath them. Because tomorrow, when I enter that courtroom and take the bench under the seal of the United States, I won't need their permission. The gavel will speak for itself. I was 22 when I first entered the courthouse on Union Street. Not as a law student. Not as a paralegal. Just a girl in Payless flats and a borrowed blazer, clutching a resume that listed more bookstore jobs than legal ones. The job was simple. Records assistant, Judiciary Division. I filed, scanned, archived, labeled. Most days, I didn't speak more than a handful of words to anyone outside the mailroom. But I listened. Oh God, did I listen. I memorized judge names, clerk habits, which lawyers never missed deadlines and which ones charmed their way out of them. I learned what motion to suppress meant before I ever read a casebook. I could tell by the tone of a ruling whether it was being overturned. I became fluent in the language of law, long before I had the right to speak it. Down in the archives, it was always cold. Steel shelves, buzzing fluorescents, the smell of dust and toner. My desk was tucked in the far back, a folding chair, a surplus monitor, and a little corkboard where I'd pinned a single post-it note. This is not where it ends. No one ever saw it. No one ever asked about it. At night, after hours, I'd stay behind and pull transcripts no one needed anymore. High-profile hearings, federal appeals, constitutional debates. I read them the way some people read poetry. Case by case, I taught myself what justice sounded like. What power looked like when it was wielded with clarity instead of ego. Sometimes I'd pass Michael Trenholm in the hallway. Sharp suit. Perfect posture. Voice like a closing argument. He'd say things like, "That file's late, kid. You always look surprised, like this place still impresses you. Stick to scanning, sweetheart. The real stuff's upstairs." I never responded. I just watched. Took notes. And kept applying to law school. It took me 3 tries to pass the LSAT. On the third, I got a 171. I packed my life into 2 duffel bags and left New Jersey without telling anyone. Not even my sister. My acceptance letter to Georgetown Law came in a plain envelope. No confetti. No gold seal. Just black ink on white paper that said, "We are pleased to inform you." That night, I sat on the steps of my old apartment complex and stared at the courthouse glowing in the distance. Not with longing, but with resolve. They never saw me leave. But they'll see me return. The invitation arrived on pale gray cardstock with gold lettering and my sister's name embossed across the top. Celebrating 10 years of excellence. A toast to Celine Lancaster, ESQ. It was hosted at the Ivy House, a renovated mansion just outside Trenton that now existed solely to cradle corporate egos in velvet chairs and $22 cocktails. I wasn't on the speakers list. Wasn't even seated near the front. I was listed simply as +1, family. That was fine. For tonight. Celine spotted me near the side entrance and waved, perfectly composed in her navy sheath dress and courtroom hair. She was always polished, the daughter our parents understood. "You came," she said, surprised. "Not warm. Not cold. Just curious." "I was in town," I replied. She didn't ask why. I didn't offer. Inside, the room was already buzzing. Lawyers and judges clinking glasses, sharing jokes in the language of people who believe they own the law. At table 9, my mother beamed at Celine's name printed on the program. She leaned over, pointing. "Look, Rhea." They listed all her pro bono work. I nodded politely. No one asked what I was doing these days. No one had in years. Dinner was filet mignon and delicate asparagus laid out like museum exhibits. There were speeches. Laughter. A slideshow. Someone behind me murmured, "I wonder whatever happened to the little girl who worked in records." Someone else chuckled. "She probably married a cop." My sister didn't turn around. Neither did I. Michael Trenholm gave the final toast. Same confident voice, same trimmed beard. He talked about Celine's tenacity and grace under pressure. He made a self-deprecating joke about having to rewrite half his briefs because of her notes. The room roared with admiration. "She's going places," he said, lifting his glass. They all toasted. So did I. No one noticed the federal badge tucked deep inside my clutch. No one saw the black robe folded in my suitcase. No one recognized that tomorrow at 9 a.m., they would all rise when I entered the room. Let them have their applause. Let them toast to the future. I am the future. They just don't know it yet. Back at the guest apartment, a quiet walk-up near Mercer Street, I didn't turn on the TV. I didn't scroll. I didn't need distraction. Only focus. The kind I'd practiced for years in silence, long before anyone was watching. My suitcase lay open on the bed, its contents neatly arranged like a blueprint. Everything had its place. Black pumps, shined and unscuffed. A slim folder of case notes, sealed with a red elastic band. The court-issued badge tucked inside a clear sleeve. Rhea Lancaster, U.S. District Judge. And beneath it all, the robe. Judicial black. Heavy but fluid, weighted at the cuffs and shoulders like memory. I lifted it with both hands, careful not to let it brush the floor. I didn't hang it up. I laid it across the bed, smoothing it out the way I'd seen senior judges do when no one was around. Not reverent, not nervous. Intentional. Every thread of it had meaning. Every crease told a story. This robe had passed through dozens of hands before mine. But tomorrow, it would move differently. With the cadence of someone who'd earned it alone. I checked the docket once more. Trenholm versus Barrett. 9 a.m. sharp. Courtroom 4C. Presiding Judge. R. Lancaster. The clerk had emailed confirmation earlier. No one had asked if the presiding judge had ever once been dismissed as just the girl in archives. They didn't need to. The docket already answered. On the nightstand was my grandfather's old watch, the one he wore through 30 years in municipal service. I wound it gently. Not because I needed to know the time, but because I needed to remember what it meant to show up. On time, every time, even when no one clapped. I stood in front of the mirror. No makeup. No jewelry. Just me, my breath steady, my shoulders squared. I didn't feel nervous. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt ready. Tomorrow wasn't a performance. It wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about sitting in the seat I built. Brick by brick. Night by night. Case by case. 8:52 a.m. The security guard at the south entrance nodded as I approached. "Morning, Judge Lancaster." "Morning, Marcus." He buzzed me through without looking at my badge. He knew. They all did now. The courthouse smelled the same. Polished marble. Old paper. Morning coffee. But it felt different. Because this time, I wasn't walking in to carry a file. I was walking in to decide what happens next. The elevator to the 4th floor stopped with a soft chime. Outside, the hallway was lined with benches full of clients, paralegals, junior clerks tapping nervously on phones. At the end of the hall, courtroom 4C stood waiting. Brass placard. Double doors. Silence behind it like a held breath. My clerk stood by the door, eyes alert. "We're ready when you are, Your Honor." I nodded. Inside, the courtroom was full. Defense on the left. Prosecution on the right. Reporters in the back row. Spectators scattered. Standard protocol. Nothing dramatic. Until I stepped through the side entrance and up to the bench. Everyone rose. The bailiff's voice echoed. "All rise." The Honorable Judge Rhea Lancaster presiding. I watched it land. The name. My name. Michael Trenholm, seated at the defense table, turned to face the bench, casually at first, then again, slower. He blinked. Once. Twice. He tried to speak, then thought better of it. I met his eyes. Just briefly. Not with triumph. Not with resentment. Just with the kind of presence that says, "I earned this long before you knew you'd have to respect it." I took my seat. "Good morning," I said, voice clear. "We are on the record in the matter of Trenholm versus Barrett." No hesitation. No pause. Just authority earned in silence. The proceedings began. Motions. Opening remarks. Trenholm's voice cracked slightly when he addressed the bench. "Yes, Your Honor." "Understood, Your Honor." "May I proceed, Your Honor?" Every time he said it, something shifted in the room. Like gravity had realigned. Not around him. Around me. I asked questions. Clarified terms. Sustained. Overruled. Moved the case forward with measured confidence. No one laughed. No one interrupted. Because no one could deny what was in front of them anymore. Court recessed just after 11:10 a.m. Standard timing. No theatrics. Attorneys gathered their papers. Reporters whispered as they filed out. My clerk handed me the next day's docket without comment. Smooth. Normal. Unshakable. I stayed behind an extra few minutes, gathering my notes. When I finally stepped into the hallway, he was there. Michael Trenholm, alone, without his entourage or his ego. He straightened slightly when he saw me. The same man who once winked at me by the copy machine like he owned the building. Now, he didn't even own the sentence he was trying to form. "Rhea," he started, then paused. "Judge Lancaster." I didn't. I had no idea. I looked at him. Calm. Still. Not because I was trying to prove something, but because there was nothing left to prove. "You never said anything," he continued. "You never asked," I replied. He swallowed, eyes scanning me like I was a puzzle that suddenly didn't fit the box he kept me in. "So all this time, you were doing what?" "Studying in the archives." I didn't answer. Because if you have to ask that now, you'll never understand the answer. He glanced around the empty hallway, as if expecting backup. None came. "You're good," he said finally. "On the bench. I mean, you're better than I thought." I gave him the smallest of nods. "That's because you weren't watching," I said. "Only judging." The irony didn't miss either of us. He offered a quiet breath of a laugh, almost respectful. "Not quite. I underestimated you," he added. "I know," I said. And that was all. No lecture. No memory dump. No list of things he should have seen sooner. I didn't want regret. I didn't need it. What I had was better. Presence that no one could erase. That night, my apartment was quiet. Not the kind of quiet that follows disappointment. The kind that comes after clarity. The black robe hung neatly on the back of my closet door, still holding the shape of the day. On my desk sat a framed copy of the federal order signed earlier that morning. Effective immediately, Rhea Lancaster, District Judge, U.S. Federal Court. No spotlight. No confetti. Just ink. Authority. And a name they would now be forced to learn. My sister texted me around 9 p.m. Saw your name in the ruling. Why didn't you say anything? I stared at the screen for a long moment, then typed. Because I didn't need to be seen. I needed to become. I didn't send it. I just deleted the thread and let the silence speak. I stood by the window, looking out over the courthouse where I once filed for other people's futures. And now I decide them. Not out of power. Out of responsibility. And that's the real difference. On the bookshelf behind me. Law journals with my name in the contributors index. A copy of my bar admission, signed in black ink with shaking hands, 5 years ago. And one small post-it note, now framed. The one I kept on my desk in the archives. The one that once said, "This is not where it ends." Below it, I had added a line. It was where I began. They once told me I was too soft, too quiet, too late to the table. But the truth is, I wasn't late. They were just early to judge and too blind to see what was growing in the silence. If they doubt you, let them. If they overlook you, keep building. Because the most unshakable verdict isn't what they say about you. It's the one you deliver when you walk into the room. Own your voice. And say nothing. Because your presence already said everything.